Hi, welcome to Focus on Finance. I'm your host, Melanie Parker. Focus on Finance is brought to you by the Consumer Education Division of the Wright Legacy Group and SOFA. Speaking of the Wright Legacy Group, we have the man in charge, the managing member, Mr. Steve Wright, with us today. Welcome, Steve.
Welcome, yes.
Glad to have you. Okay, this world we're in right now it's a lot. There's a lot going on, but there's something we have to talk about. It's the end of the year, tax planning.
Yeah, and there's some year-end planning steps that people need to take advantage of some low tax rates and things like that we'll talk about. So why don't you summarize the 5 points there, and then I'll hit them. 2020
year-end tax planning. Steve has 5 ideas, and I've looked at these, and they're solid. They're solid, folks. Okay, Roth conversions. First, what's a Roth?
Okay.
For those folks who don't know.
Let's start with that.
Yeah.
When you invest your money, you can put it in a traditional IRA account or 401k, 403b, thrift savings plan.
Either through your employer or independently.
Yes.
Okay.
But these are pre-tax accounts, meaning that you do not pay tax on this money. You actually get a tax deduction the year you put the money in.
Wow.
But then it's all taxable when you take it out down the road. A Roth IRA is the exact opposite.
Okay.
You pay tax on it today so that it grows tax-free forever.
Gotcha. Okay.
So as we approach the end of any year, you look at the possibility of taking some of this money that you put into a tax-deferred account, a pre-tax account, go and pay the tax on that at today's low tax rates, and transfer it or convert it over into a Roth IRA, so now it grows tax-free from that point on.
Gotcha.
So the reason it's a good idea to do this at the end of the year is that you know about how much your income is now. We're well into November. You know about how much your income is. And you can do some pre-planning with your CPA tax preparer and look at where are you in the tax bracket. If I'm in the 12% tax bracket, the next jump is 22%.
Yikes.
So if I have room in my 12% tax bracket where I can take $5,000 from my IRA account, convert it to tax-free Roth, and claim $5,000 more as income this year and not bump up a bracket, then we call it fill in the bracket. That's a good strategy to stay in the 12% bracket and each year take a little bit of your IRA money, pre-tax money, and put it into a tax-free account.
Okay, okay.
And the whole key is there's coordinating with your financial planner, advisor, your tax preparer particularly, to get an estimate of what your taxes are.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a big jump from 12% to 22% for most folks.
Is there a minimum maximum in there anywhere as far
No,
as that?
actually there's no minimum amount you can convert. The maximum amount is how much you want to pay tax on this year.
Right.
And that's what brings us to the kind of overriding theme for all these points we're going to talk about. In 2017, we had a big tax act that passed that lowered tax brackets, doubled the standard deduction through year 2025. Okay? So we have now still 6 years to take advantage of these low tax brackets. However, there may be some concern that these tax brackets may not hold up. I mean, because of this pandemic, federal spending has been outlandish.
Daggone Rona.
Well, at the end of our fiscal year, end of September this year, our national debt was $3.3 trillion. That's as much as we had at the end of World War II. That's how much spending we've done to try to keep things going.
Right.
There's some concern that the tax brackets may change. We may not be in these low tax brackets all the way through 2025.
Okay.
So the strategies we're talking about is to take advantage of these low tax brackets while we have them.
Gotcha.
So the 12% bracket could jump to 15%, let's say. So let's take advantage of the low tax bracket.
Sure. So even though they said through 2025, that's always subject to change?
Oh yeah, with each Congress, each president, things like that.
Oh, wow.
And interesting, they did it through 2025, which puts us through the 2024 presidential cycle.
Oh Lordy. It's all about politics.
Anyway, that's just kind of interesting. Now, for a lot of folks, when they're calculating their income, many people drew unemployment insurance this year. And you have to remember when you're reporting income to see how much Roth conversion you do, unemployment insurance is taxable as income.
Okay.
So even though you didn't work
and that will affect
as
a lot of
much,
people,
you got to still claim the unemployment insurance as income.
Will they get a W-2, a 1099?
Yeah,
How does that work for them?
They'll get a tax statement on that.
Okay, good.
But as far as purposes of estimating your income for this year, you know what you got. You know how much your check was, how long you got it, and things like that.
Sure, okay.
So a Roth conversion is good at any time of the year. This year particularly, your income may have been down anyway, and your lower bracket might be a good time to look at taking some of this money that's 100% taxable. I call it tax infested, and put it into tax free.
Right, I like that, tax infested. That's good.
So it's locking in and paying on, you're prepaying the tax on this money before you have to take it out down the road.
That's smart.
Yeah.
So people don't necessarily have to wait until the end of the year, December, but just as rule of thumb, it's something maybe they should evaluate and look at annually?
Yes. Yeah, annually and usually toward the end of the year. But it's a good point. Don't wait till December 20th to do this.
Right.
These things take time. You're talking about transfer money from one account to the other.
Sure.
So actually, the week after Thanksgiving would really be the week you'd want to be, the last week you'd want to consider getting the process going of transferring money from a taxable IRA.
Puts a different twist on Black Friday, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, it's just, and Thanksgiving is very late this year.
Yes.
So it's something to really get on the agenda and mark down. I had conversations this morning with someone about this exact subject. So.
Yeah, it's a hot topic on top of everything else. Let's just lump those taxes right on top of it. IRA distributions. Yeah.
So a couple of things there. Because of the pandemic back in March, Congress passed the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act, the CARES Act. What the CARES Act did is that it eliminated having to take out a required minimum distribution from your retirement accounts.
Gotcha.
If you were 70 and a half last year or older, you were supposed to take out a required minimum distribution this year.
Right.
Okay. Because account balances got depleted because the markets went down, they said it's not required. However, there makes some sense to go ahead and take that money if you need it for income.
Sure.
Again, we're in lower tax brackets. It's not required. You can take it. Many people live off that income anyway, and so it makes some sense to still look at possibly taking that annual required minimum distribution, even if it's not required by law.
Gotcha.
You can always take out more each year than what's required minimum. So it makes sense maybe to perhaps look at that. A lot of people with the Roth conversion we talked about earlier, you can now take what would be your required minimum distribution that you're supposed to take out, say it's $5,000, and go put that in a Roth.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
In normal years, if you want to do a Roth conversion, you have to take the required minimum distribution out, and then you can only do a Roth conversion on the part of the money that's left.
Gotcha.
So this is a year where you can take the money that you would have had to keep and can convert to a Roth.
I like that.
So those two kind of go hand in hand.
All right, a very fundamental question here. Why? Why do we even have to take money out? If we invested it, we put it in there, we want to let it ride, why do we have to take money out?
Because your partner, Uncle Sam, the federal government, and state gave you a tax deduction for putting the money away each year.
Right.
When you put $4,000 into your IRA account in 2019, it was no tax was paid on that money. You took money out. The agreement with Uncle Sam is that whenever I decide to take money out, it's going to come out as taxable income. Well, there's several $1 trillion in these retirement accounts that no tax has been paid on.
Okay.
So your partner, Uncle Sam, says when you reach a certain age, you got to start taking out a minimum because I need to start getting paid the taxes on that.
All right. Well, that makes it very clear.
That's why it's required.
Yeah. Because you think, I invested this money. I want to take it out when I want to take it out. It's my money. But like you said, Uncle Sam's got to get paid.
You can always take out more than required, but it's all have to pay the tax on it.
Gotcha.
That's why if some of it is a Roth, there's no requirement to take money out of the Roth account while you're living.
Okay. Can you take money out earlier than that?
Yes. If it's before age 59 and a half, there's a 10% penalty.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Plus taxes.
However, a side note, because of the year we're in, part of the CARES Act that was passed in March provided relief that if you would need to tap into your 401ks and IRA accounts this year only, because you were affected by the pandemic, you could take out up to $100,000 out of that account and not pay the 10% early withdrawal penalty.
Excellent.
And then they'll give you 3 years to pay the tax on that equally.
Wow.
Or to pay it back.
So there's a little silver lining to this year.
So there was a part of the act that did give the exemption to that. But surveys have found only about 5% of people have taken advantage of that coronavirus distribution.
That's
part
surprising
of that
and pleasantly surprising.
It's very
actually.
good, though.
Yes,
Very few have had to tap into it.
That's good. That's very good. Qualified charitable distributions.
Yeah, and this is something that we talk about every year. And it is, if you're giving money to a church or a charity, a nonprofit,
Right.
this is the only way that you can take your money out of your IRA account, particularly your required minimum money from your IRA account, which again is all taxable, and have it directly transferred to your church or charity. You're giving $5,000 to this church every year anyway.
Right.
You have money sent directly from your IRA account to the church. You satisfy that required minimum you have to take out, and you don't have to pay tax on it.
Wow.
It's a non-taxable event.
Gotcha.
So you've taken care of taking money out that you have to take out, goes direct to a charity, and you don't have to pay tax on it. Actually, you can send up to $100,000 a year from your IRA account per person. So a couple could give $200,000 a year from their IRA account to a church or charity and not pay tax on that.
So I know that, I love that. When you donate to a nonprofit, that is possibly a tax deduction.
Correct.
So does that parlay into that on top of it, or is it two totally different
That
things?
would really be good, wouldn't it?
Right? I'm trying.
When you do a qualified charitable distribution, you do not get to take the additional tax deduction for a charitable distribution. Okay, which is fine.
Sure.
So just balance out what you give to your churches and charities to the same amount dollars here, and it's a non-taxable event. The good news about it not having to count as income is because your income is what's used once you're past age 65 to calculate if you're paying surtax or surcharges on your Medicare premiums, your Part A, your Part D drug plan, stuff like that.
It's all intertwined.
And not having extra income also affects whether you have to pay tax on your Social Security benefits at 50% or 85%.
Gotcha.
So anything you can do to take taxable money, tax-infested money, and send it to someplace else and not have to report that on your tax form is a good idea. It's the most tax-efficient way to take money from your IRAs and send it to church and charities. And this has been around now permanently for a couple of years. So you really got to look at that. Again, you got to get this ball rolling right after Thanksgiving at the latest, because you're talking about transferring from here to here to get that going.
And talk to a financial advisor, because I can't imagine trying to travel that path on my own. So if somebody wanted to do the required minimum distribution, let's say it's $5,000, can they do $2,500 to their church? $2,500 to their bank account? Is that something, or is it everything or nothing?
Yeah, it's a great question. It is not an all or nothing.
Gotcha.
And it's not locking you in that every year this is what you're going to do.
Gotcha. Okay.
Year to year, you can make a decision about what to take out and who to send it to.
Okay.
So it's a one-year event.
Sure. You may have more than one charity that you're interested in, and you want to rotate it every year and take the grandbabies on a trip at the same time, and everybody wins.
Well, and you just want to document it well.
Sure.
But everybody gets that. And you'll get something from that church or charity about what they got.
Okay. Yeah. All righty. So gifting, my favorite thing in 'tis the season. So let's talk about gifting that money.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what we're talking about. Many individuals, under the new tax law, let's go back to what we've talked about, that from 17 to 2025, if you die as an individual, you can now pass $11,580,000 worth of your stuff.
I wish I
your
could.
Full estate, your
Right.
businesses, your farms, cash, to your heirs without paying any federal estate tax. Okay. Well, after 2025, that goes way down to $5 million.
Oh.
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah. Now, so that's a large number. Both of them are large numbers, but many businesses and estates are more than that. So the idea here, again, each year is to consider gifting some of your estate now ahead of time while you're living, so that you can see how your heirs respond or how they enjoy or whatever.
How responsible they are. I mean, let's keep it real.
It's a non-taxable event.
Sure. Okay.
If you die and your estate is worth, say $15 million, you're going to have a little $4 million that's going to be subject to estate tax.
Wow.
which can be pretty onerous, you know,
Sure.
40% or more.
Sure.
So anything you can do to reduce the size of your estate now will have some benefit.
Okay.
However, there's the issue of, I built this, I bought it, I've created this accounts. You want to kind of keep it for your life. And there's a personal thing. I understand
Sure.
that. But there are some things that people do in gifting that comes in real handy. You can give $15,000 a year to anybody you want, and it's a non-taxable event. So I mean, you can, if you got a husband, a son, daughter, and they got 3 kids, you know, 5 times 15, you can give $75,000 to them, or $15,000
okay.
each, and that takes $75,000 out of your estate away forever.
So that
basically.
benefits me tax-wise, but would
Well,
they have to
there's
claim
no
that
tax-
as
no,
income?
There's no income to you at all. If you get a
Okay.
$15,000 gift from a relative, friend, or someone, it's there's no income. There's no income to you.
Really?
It's a gift.
Interesting. Okay.
Capital letters.
Sure.
GIFT.
Would they have to claim that on their taxes, but under a special letter? Okay.
No. It's just
Wow.
a true ability to transfer assets transfer-free
Interesting.
there. The other thing, though, we mentioned $15,000, but you can give unlimited amount of gifts for direct payment to pay for tuition for your kids or grandkids, or medical payments that they've incurred, or gift them money so that they can pay for life insurance, or if they did a Roth conversion and owe a tax, you can give them the money to cover the tax.
Wow, okay.
And stuff. So gifting's a good way to transfer money now over.
Sure.
And it's a way to help them beyond the $15,000.
Awesome. So if you had a kid who's graduated from college and they're responsible and you want to help them out with a down payment on a house, you can do that.
You can do that.
And it's not going to hurt you or them.
Right.
Awesome.
Right.
You know, your bank account's going to go down a little bit, but
Yeah.
you know, I kind of like the idea of watching them enjoy.
Yeah, and a lot of people do that, particularly some kids that have medical conditions, issues that come up that's not their fault whatsoever.
Right.
And you can, again, the key though is direct payment. If you
Gotcha.
give it to the child, it's limited to
Okay.
$15,000.
Okay.
But if they have a $30,000 medical bill, you just write the check directly to the medical provider themselves, and
Okay.
you can do more than $15,000.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right, good to know. There's so many moving parts. All right, this one I've seen firsthand at the Wright Legacy Group and how important this is. Updated estate plans.
Yes. And particularly, I mentioned there, after what's called the Secure Act. Okay.
All right.
Let's go back to Congress. Let's go back to what seems another world. December 23rd of last year, before all this happened,
Right.
Congress passed what was called the Secure Act. And in it was several provisions. One it was, we mentioned the required minimum distribution from IRA accounts
Right.
at age 70 and a half. Well, for the Secure Act, it raised that required minimum age to 72.
Okay.
So now, if you were 70 and a half December 31st of last year, 2019, you technically had a required minimum distribution required this year. But it was waived because of the virus. So,
Sure.
so now, if you turn 70 and a half January 1st of this year, 2020, you do not have to take any money out until you turn age 72, which will be
Okay.
next year.
Sure.
So it means that you put this money in, it can grow another 18 months before you have to take it out.
Great.
So that's significant because people are working longer, basically,
Yes.
keeping jobs, and can build up a little more retirement income before age 72. So that was the main thing. The other thing that the Secure Act did, though, that has just kind of turned estate planning on its heads, is that when you inherited IRA account or 401k, stuff like that, this IRA money we talked about, and it went to your sons and daughters, okay, or even grandkids, they could inherit that money and they would have a required minimum distribution that they'd have to take out based upon their life expectancy. So if you're age 50 when your mom pies and relieves an IRA account, your life expectancy might be 30 years.
Right.
Meaning that you had 30 years to stretch this money out to take out and grow and live on for 30 years and pay tax on a little bit along the way. We called it a multi-generation IRA account or stretch IRA.
Right.
Well, what the Secure Act is said that if someone inherits it basically other than a spouse, that now you have to take this money out in 10 years.
Okay.
Remember, no tax has been paid on it.
Sure.
Uncle Sam says, instead of me getting the tax over 30 years, I need that money more now. So technically it says there's one required minimum distribution. At December 31st, 10 years following the year of death, all that money has to be out. You don't have to touch it, but if you wait till the very end and take it, it's going to be a big tax bill.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of planning involved now on how much to take this year, maybe next year. You got to get it emptied out by the end of 10 years.
Gotcha.
Again, it's to create tax revenue.
Right.
So that is kind of upended the whole world of estate planning and trying to stretch these dollars
But you
out.
can roll it into?
You roll it into what's called an inherited. Mom leaves you an IRA account. You're the named beneficiary.
Right.
You roll it into what's called an inherited or beneficiary IRA account. And you can take the whole amount, or you can keep some for yourself, pay tax on now. But you have to have it in an inherited IRA account in order to have that 10-year stretch at least.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. You estate plans. This is just something that I've witnessed. I am in the office. I hear in conversations and those types of things. Big deal in estate plans, beneficiaries.
Yes, that was my last point.
Oh, okay.
You've
I jumped
got,
the gun.
updating your estate plan, you've got to double check your beneficiary form.
Yeah. Every December?
Well,
do it
almost,
annually. Yeah.
At least, because
Right.
if you don't change them, the stuff ends up being to the estate. It's a big mess.
Right.
Make sure who you want on that form is who you want to get the money.
Because every state has different laws regarding that, correct?
It could, yes.
If it
If
becomes
it goes to
questionable?
probate court, yes, it
Yeah.
sure does. There's some federal laws that come into play too in some accounts, but making sure that if a spouse dies, they probably were the first beneficiaries.
Right.
Your kids were probably secondary. Update it to name the kids the primary if that's what you want. Okay,
Right.
and maybe name some grandkids or nieces and nephews the contingent or something. And here's the big point though, that if you're with a financial company or a bank and they change names, change ownership,
Wow.
there's
Which
no
happens.
guarantee that beneficiary designation gets transferred over to the new accounts.
Really?
All this happens all the time.
Oh.
And that can cause big problems. So
Right.
you keeping copies of your beneficiary forms, you making sure that if your bank is bought out or your financial firm has changed hands, that you get a copy or printout, go to their website and check your beneficiaries.
Sure. If you go through a divorce,
Again,
it's a big one.
there's many cases that have gone to the U.S. Supreme Court where there was a divorce, the fella had an IRA plan, his previous wife's beneficiary, he moved on, she moved on, he put more money away, remarried, died, and that second wife thought she was going to get the money from the first thing.
Right.
Did not, because the beneficiary form still was in her name.
Right. And that's
that-
Kentucky law, isn't it?
No,
Whoever's
well,
on that form, or is it a little wobbly?
This was a case before the U.S. Supreme Court several years ago, a 9-0 decision, by the way.
Wow.
The beneficiary form rules.
Yes.
Now, some states are adopting, some have gone so far now that when you get a divorce, some states, that when you get a divorce, your beneficiary forms are null and void.
Right.
So then you've got to go and change them all to whoever you want. If you die, then it goes to the estates. Big mess.
It is a big mess. I
Yes.
would really encourage folks to be proactive, and if you're going to do an annual checkup on your accounts,
Yep.
why not do an annual checkup on your beneficiaries?
Yeah.
It's your money. You want it to go where you want it to go.
In most accounts now that should be available online.
Good.
But I'm a paper person.
Yes, we like our papers.
So,
we do.
Because when the time comes to check the beneficiary, I need to know who they are. What if that online information is gone or not there?
Right.
I've got a paper
Yeah.
that shows what I have.
We're old
there.
school. Yes, yes. Well, I'm afraid we are out of time.
Wow.
Is there anything else you want to hit home, or did
No,
we cover it?
I've got it
We
right
got
here.
it?
The beneficiary forms were the last thing I want to make sure we talked
Gotcha.
about.
Good. Well, happy December, folks. From the
Yep.
Wright Legacy Group, we want to wish you a very Merry Christmas, and I guess we will see you next year. Bye.
Here's to a good 2021.
That's right.